I am continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a bit as I move along. So we've been reading in 2 Kings, chapters 4, about some of the acts of Elisha, and we're going to continue this in chapter 5. Naaman the Syrian comes to Elisha to be healed of leprosy. He rejects the prophet's instruction, but relents and dips himself in Jordan 7 times. He is healed. Elisha refuses to accept a reward. Gehazi accepts a gift from Naaman and is cursed with leprosy. This is a very famous story, so let us get into it. Here we go. Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master, and honorable, because by him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. And the Syrians had gone out by companies, and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid. And she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, Would God my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. And one went in and told his lord, saying, Thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, Go to, go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed, and took with him 10 talents of silver, and 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of raiment. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, Now, when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. Okay, now, let us pause there, because you got to remember, Syria was completely defeated by Ahab. But in a later battle, Ahab died in war with Syria. So Syria has been at war with Israel for years. Now, the current king is Jehoram. It doesn't say him by name here, but Jehoram is king. He is the son of Ahab. And the king of Syria, there's no indication that Syria, well, I mean, this is the only indication here that possibly Syria was at war with Israel during the time of Jehoram. But more than likely, I think that the little maid of Israel was captured in that last war where Ahab died. And now we have Naaman is coming in. Naaman is told, his maid tells his wife, and his wife tells him, he tells the king, and the king says, hey, this is great. If there's somebody who can actually heal you, they give him all this money, send him out there, let's go get you healed. And he sends this letter to the king of Israel. Now, again, Ahab was almost constantly at war with Syria. It seems that for the time of Jehoram, there's little direct conflict between the two, but the two countries are still hostile to each other. So the fact that the king of Syria doesn't seem to really think much about sending this letter. And I do like that he sends the letter to the king saying, hey, I'm sending you Naaman and heal him. Anyway, I'm rambling now, so let's get on to verse 7. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he rent his clothes and said, Am I God, to kill and to make alive, that this man doth send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me. And it was, so you see, as again, he sent to the king. He didn't send to Elisha. He didn't know who Elisha was. He just heard that there was somebody in Israel who could heal Naaman. And so he sends to the king, because he figures the king will be able, if the king isn't able to do it, at least the king knows who is able to do it. And the king assumes that this is being sent so that Syria has an excuse to invade Israel again. Verse 8, And it was so, when Elisha the man of God had heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, Wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses, and with his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, Go, and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. But Naaman was wroth, and went away, and said, Behold, I thought he will surely come out to me, and stand, and call on the name of the Lord his God, and strike his hand over the place, and recover the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpah, rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in a rage. And you got to understand, Naaman, he's a good pagan again. And this is the way that the pagans would, in their religious rites, think about trying to cure people if they were going to try to do it at all. And that is true. They would call on the name of their god, and they would, as they said, smite the area of the leprosy, usually with like some kind of oil or perfume. They'd, smack it, whatever. And so he says, that's what he's used to. But Elisha doesn't do this. Elisha just sends him, he doesn't even come out in person, he just sends a messenger out. And this angers him, because to him, it's an insult. He is a great man. It should have been the prophet himself, and it should have been a great display. Anyways, verse 13. And his servants came near, and spake unto him, and said, My father, if the prophet had bid thee do some great thing, wouldest thou not have done it? How much rather then when he saith to thee, Wash, and be clean? Then went he down, and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh came again, like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Now consider this. It doesn't just say that he was cleansed of his leprosy. It says he came back as the flesh of a little child. This would indicate to me that it didn't just cleanse the leprosy, it removed scars. It removed blemishes. It removed the signs of aging had been removed. This is so much more than just a cure. Verse 15. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him. And he said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. But he said, As the Lord liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. And Naaman said, Shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules burden of earth? For thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offering, nor sacrifice unto other gods, but unto the Lord. In this thing the Lord pardon thy servant, that when thy master goeth into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leaneth on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon, when I bow down myself in the house of Rimmon, the Lord pardon thy servant in this thing. And he said unto him, Go in peace. So he departed from him a little way. Naaman only appears in this chapter. This is the only time we ever hear about this guy. But I love this. Talk about just a complete conversion. Naaman was angry that Elisha wasn't acting like the prophets of the pagan gods. He wasn't coming out in person, and he wasn't putting on a grand display. But when he did what Elisha told him to do, and he was cured not only of the leprosy, but back to almost perfect health. He came back, and I love that. Now I know there is no God in all the earth. And my favorite part of this whole thing, I love this, is, he offers Elisha a present, a reward, and Elisha declines. And then he says, well, give me 2 mules burden of dirt, because now he's saying, I want to take back the ground of Israel. I want to be able to kneel on the dirt from Israel when I pray to God. I want that with me. But my favorite part is this. It says, I will never give burnt offerings. I will never offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice unto any other gods. No, I will only worship this God. This is the only God that there is. But then he says, but pardon me in this one thing. How this? Because Rimmon, this is one of the pagan gods. As it says in the footnotes, a Syrian god of wind, rain, and storms. So kind of the Syrian version of Zeus or Thor. And apparently he was the god that was favored by the king of Syria. And as a dutiful commander, he's the captain of the host of Syria. And when the king goes in to worship in the temple of Rimmon, Naaman has to go with him. It is a civic duty on his part to be there. And when the king bows down, Naaman has to bow down too. Again, that's his civic duty. And he says, just don't hold that against me. Know that I'm not praying to this God. I am putting on a performance, as is my duty to my king. And Elisha says, go in peace. In other words, he is saying, Naaman, you're good. God has accepted that. I love this conversion of Naaman. Anyways, let's finish the chapter. Verse 20. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, Behold, my servant hath spared Naaman the Syrian in not receiving at his hand that which he brought. But as the Lord liveth, I will run after him, and take somewhat of him. So Gehazi followed after Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he lighted down from the chariot to meet him, and said, Is all well? And he said, All is well. My master hath sent me, saying, Behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver, and 2 changes of garments. And Naaman said, Be content, take 2 talents. And he urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags, with 2 changes of garments, and laid them upon 2 of his servants, and they bare them before him. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hands, and bestowed them in the house. And he let the men go, and they departed. But he went in, and stood before his master. And Elisha said unto him, Whence comest thou, Gehazi? And he said, Thy servant went no whither. And he said unto him, Went not mine heart with thee, when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money, and to receive garments, and oliveyards, and vineyards, and sheep, and oxen, and men servants, and maidservants? The leprosy therefore of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence a leper, as white as snow. Gehazi is cursed here because this was not about money. God was blessing Naaman because he knew Naaman would accept this. He knew what was the outcome. And Gehazi went and he took the money. Gehazi acted in greed, not in faith. That is why he is cursed. But the story of Naaman is one of the greatest conversion stories in all the scriptures. I'm going to leave that here, and I do believe we will be continuing in 2 Kings in our next video. So see you then.